I'm so miserable in TSA, and because the whole time there, I'm like, we didn't used to have to do this. Like, this is such a waste of my time. It's all theater.
What's your worst opinion?
I don't know, man. Why do we go through the TSA?
So
like, why?
So nobody fucking blows up the fucking
a bomb in.
So we waste all of our.
That's worth 6 to 8 minutes.
Why don't we have it on trains? Why don't we have it on buses? You know why? Because it's not a real thing. It's theater. Because it's not a political take. Like I said, if TSA was a serious thing, if like we needed it, then how are we able to get on trains and buses with that? It's a government. It's a waste of money. It's theater to make people feel safe. It's not
Clement
crazy.
just said that their terrorist attacks don't exist.
No, I didn't say that.
In New York City. Yes, you did.
So it took about 10 seconds for him to say that it's a waste of money and for that to get to terrorist attacks don't exist. This is what happens. This is what I mean when, you find a bunch of bros who don't ever discuss anything politically, which is fine. And you get people who are Redditors and stuff like that, and people who are in circles of really nerdy games. And I'm a gamer myself, but there are circles of people who play video games where they're just, they meet up online and they share these opinions and values, but they never actually discuss the merits of it. That's what you're seeing here. These people, there's some sort of weird programmed reaction. I don't know about TSA. They don't seem to know that TSA doesn't exist in other countries, and they don't seem to know that terrorist attacks have happened in other countries. And there's also the fact that before 9/11, this wasn't a thing, and that doesn't mean there was never a terrorist attack. But watch on, it gets worse. And again, I'm a fan of these people, but this is just painful.
2 weeks before 9/11, he says this. Oh my God.
Didn't say that.
Yes, you did. You said.
I said terrorist attacks generally don't happen. If they did, then trains and subways would be blowing up constantly.
I need the tape from this guy. You said terrorist attacks.
Terrorist attacks I meant generally don't happen.
Okay, well,
they haven't happened in 20 years here.
Your shit's crazy right now. I think that you're bored. You're just trying to start.
I said
don't
the bracket.
understand.
Ken Jack look off in the bracket.
It's crazy.
It's not crazy. It's crazy that you guys are such sheep that you guys are willing.
You want to die? Were we walking around? We're sheep. Oh, I'll be a sheep then.
I'm such a sheep for paying $80 over 5 years to walk through TSA.
It's not about that. It's about the time you lost. There's more hours lost by waiting in line than the lives lost at a terrorist attack.
I don't know what kind of internet hole you've fallen down, but we gotta pull you out. You're not okay.
An internet this immediately resorts to groupthink. Why don't you just accept what the government tells you? The government's here to protect me. This idea that all of a sudden the airlines got together and, the government got together and said, what's the best thing we can do to protect people? You would have to ignore everything that's this isn't 2002. You would have a way better argument in 2001 to 2005, But we went to Iraq and Afghanistan. All this stuff happens. We've seen all these other wars. We've seen all these things that the government does that isn't actually to benefit you. Obamacare and whatnot. This isn't actually... Newsflash, guys. This isn't actually because they love you. The government doesn't love you. The idea here is, if you complain about 15 minutes, well, it's just 5 minutes. We just want to protect you. And in exchange for your compliance, we get billions of dollars a year, and we get more government employees, and we can say how things are bad. Let's watch a bit more, and then we're going to get into the statistics of why these people are wrong and why TSA is so bad.
This is crazy. Crazy.
It's the worst take in human
history. And also, do you probably know how many hundreds of terrorist attacks probably we've stopped that we don't know anything about?
Something happened to him over in the past 2 days.
And so are we going
He's lost.
There's also papers written by very intelligent people. Check it out. Go. Nate Silver did a thing about it. Go check it out.
Nate Silver's the worst.
He's good with numbers. Why do you hate him? But what do you hate him?
Because he's full of shit. Because he uses numbers to manipulate a narrative that he wants to create to seem right. And I would say
government money. It's a joke. No, it's no. It has not prevented any terrorist attacks.
Wait, explain.
I will.
I mean, they've taken
go on trains.
Why you don't have it on trains? It's honestly level of based. It's like you start off with taxes are fraud, then you go a few levels down, and you're like TSA is not worth it.
Well, TSA stopped 3,269 firearms at airport security checkpoints nationwide during the first half of 2024.
And having
So there's a statistic that Glenny Balls used, and again, I love Glenny Balls, but this is a statistic that he goes through here, and it doesn't actually mean anything. This is what happens in, when you're not involved in this sort of stuff. And I understand that off the top, the instinct is, well, it's protecting us, but it's not, because the government doesn't actually love you. So here's what I think he looked up and found right away, this happens when... I'll just read this for a second. So, according to TSA, across 8 Pennsylvania airports, and this is from CBS News, they confiscated 103 guns in 2023, a serious uptake. And then, overall, TSA confiscated 6,700 guns across the country, an increase of 195 from 2022, when 6,542 guns were taken at checkpoints. And that goes, passengers are permitted to fly with guns, but there are regulations and requirements. Passengers can travel with guns, but must have them unloaded and locked in hard case inside their bagged luggage. Failing to do so, $50,000 fine. So there's no mention of, and maybe there was on his, of preventing terrorist attacks, but they don't say that in the video. If you watch the rest, I don't want to steal their content. But they say, how about... we just assume that a bunch of those were terrorist attacks. Well, those people would have brought up on terrorist charges if they had, illegal firearms. Typically, a person committing a terrorist attack or a shooting, or we can go to the Trump shooting, which was most recently, not his gun. Parents' gun, relatives' gun. They tend not to do with their own legally owned firearms. They get it from a relative. Even if that wasn't true, you can't just say that just because people got caught with guns, and the point that CBS News makes is that it's because of, regulations and improper storage. You can't just say that inherently stops terrorist attacks. That is a misnomer. That is just a non-statistical reality that you are just assuming and therefore using for your argument. I could say, can't we assume that 35% of those people, or a small percentage of people, can't we assume that 5% of those people were going to sell those guns illegally once they got to where they were going? I mean, maybe they were. You can come up with anything if you like. You talk about manipulating statistics, that's what it is. TSA employees have a 95% failure rate, and 15 other terrifying facts. This is something you're going to see on a lot of different articles, is that the failure rate was actually 95% when they first started doing checks on it. And this number comes from 67 out of 70 tests. The Department of Homeland Security conducted undercover investigations in which they posed as normal passengers and purposely tried to sneak fake explosives and banned weapons through security. TSA agents failed 67 of those 70 tests. So this is a number that ABC News came up with. Their procedures failed more than half the time, according to a source familiar with a classified report. And when ABC News asked the source if the failure rate was 80%, the response was, "You're in the ballpark." And that number was actually upped to about 70%, so they got slightly better. Undercover investigators working on the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Inspector General managed to sneak fake guns, knives, and explosives through checkpoints earlier this year, getting the mock weapons through a depressing 70% of the time. So Chris Klemmer is completely right about this. It's if this was a gigantic concern, you would have this everywhere. But isn't that weird that you would forgive the government for failing 95% of the time? Would you do that for any other business? Is there any other place where you would say, this pizza contains shit 95% of the time, but if for 5% of those times it's good, then we should keep it? That's not serious enough related to terrorist attacks? Okay, fine. A heart surgeon. 95% of the time, the heart surgeon kills the patient. Is that good enough for you? Or are you going to say something's wrong here and we need to stop throwing money at it?